Hey you guys, welcome to today's video. Obviously from the title you know that this is going to be intense, different, and this is absolutely not a video I ever thought in a million years that I would be making.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Right Opinion, the home of a twat with too much free time. And who said internet drama was boring? Well, many people. But let's face it, not too much has happened this year, and the usual suspects such as Jake Paul have just appeared to fade into the background as people finally tire from having to expose them for whatever stupid thing they've done this month. And it's not like they've stopped doing stupid stuff, it's Jake Paul. But we want new drama, some new people to ruin. Hooray! We love that, that's the spirit. So let's talk about the beauty community. In 2018, I made a video on the beauty community. It wasn't perfect, I mean no video truly is, but one of the greatest points that I raised was that they were kind of taking over a significant proportion of drama from previous communities, and with the rise of the beauty-oriented drama channels to really embellish on that niche, it only meant that subsequent dramas were going to gain more traction. But why do so many people seem to care about the drama in this specific community on principle? Is it because it's a lot equivalent to the sort of drama you get in a cliche TV show based on high school experience? Yeah, in fact, everyone's always throwing shade at each other, and that makes it a bit entertaining. Equally, they all purport to have this goody two-shoes persona. It's always like some moral battle, so when someone does do something that we perceive as shitty, we're ready to drag them out onto the dance floor. Now, what makes a drama somewhat seismic in its impact? Many people would say to the point that it invokes a loss of subscribers onto a channel, and to be honest, we haven't really seen that much this year. But like waiting for buses, two came along at once, Pro Jared and James Charles. Now, as I declared in my tweet, I'm still very interested in the pro-Jared situation, but it seems that at the time, he hid behind the wave of outrage against James Charles. Let's make it so the tide doesn't leave him at the shore. Either way, I'm hoping that there's still more to come on this situation, so I decided to focus on today's. The beauty community, for all its makeup, has some real savagery lying underneath. And we witnessed that last year when Jeffree Star got into drama with a few people, but most notoriously Manny Mua and Laura Lee. And when the court of public opinion came out in favour of Star, damage was dealt that can still be witnessed to this day. The beauty community is truly brutal. A cheeky exposé or well-placed drama can destroy anyone, and the effects are long-term. You don't see that in many other places. So I saw that today's subject, James Charles, was experiencing a decrease in subscribers of unprecedented amounts. Well, it didn't surprise me looking at how cutthroat the beauty community has the capability to be. But even with that said, it's more than that. James Charles is not just any ordinary beauty creator.
In fact, it was so fun and so fresh, drumroll please, that we decided to do it all summer long.
James Charles is the 19-year-old lad on whatever number of subscribers he's on at the time of this video's release, but for the last few months he's been a huge name in the beauty community, for better and for worse. On one hand, his personality, although not my cup of tea, no pun intended, is pretty memorable. He has a great way of establishing hooks, especially with the phrase sister, which at this point I'm surprised his management haven't sister trademarked it. He's a creative, flamboyant guy with a lot of going for him. Like every channel, he's got into a bit of drama here and there, but nothing prominent enough to really gain attention outside the people who were already seeking drama. And as mentioned, drama for beauty channels is pretty much a daily event. That's the problem with drama sometimes. It becomes so common that no one is honestly surprised by it, and therefore it lacks any greater effect. This changed, however, on the 10th of May, when Tati Westbrook, another beauty creator, dropped a video by the name of Bye Sister, a play on James's iconic phrase, in which she documents why, in spite of her extensive history supporting and working with him, she no longer wants to associate with him. These entail a series of criticisms that relate back to the way he has treated his friends, his inappropriate behaviour at certain events, the fact that he promoted a brand that would be sensitive to younger children, in spite of the fact that he has said to Tati that he wouldn't promote hers due to the age of his demographic, and the real kicker that everyone has honed in on, his predatory behaviour, for which he has a strange obsession with chasing and supposedly trying to persuade straight men to sleep with him. All this when presented in a very classy, mature tone that Tati seems to emanate all over her work, was enough not just to completely halt all of James Charles's momentum, but to cause the greatest sub-loss in YouTube's history. In fact, in one day, he lost over 1 million subscribers, which is astonishing. Following this, it was like the dam had broken and a flurry of allegations came crashing down on him, many alleging that he had a habit of catfishing and manipulating straight guys into various positions, metaphorical positions that is. On top of this, a load of further accusations from a various range of sources came forward, some more true than others, but they all received incredible levels of attention. However, like anything, there will always follow backlash, and like this again, many people came forward to dispute many things, some the verifiability of the claims, some Tati's own motivations and refrain from speaking out sooner. I mean, PewDiePie made a video covering a lot of this. On top of this, it was revealed that some additional claims have been completely falsified, thus leading to more collateral drama relating back to James's career. Now, on one hand, I was pleased. I was one step closer to becoming the most subscribed gay James on the platform. On the other, I felt there was a bit more to the story. So I put out a tweet asking people if they had any opinions themselves and what they wanted me to look into and discuss. Because although I had my own line, there is still a lot to clear up. And although I do have one clear statement in mind, today I will be covering all of these topics and explaining why I personally believe this situation was inevitable, exactly why this detail is very important, and why it has created many more problems in regards to our own judgment of the situation, and how this was exposed when James finally did come forward. I don't think I really have too much else to add, so I suggest we move in and see exactly what I mean. One of the hot takes circulating around Twitter currently is, with all the drama that James Charles has been involved in, why was it this one that should have taken him down? Is it just because straight people are looking to reinforce their fears against the scary gays, especially when throughout the last few years, James Charles has supposedly been involved in multiple scandals with various people and various allegations? I mean, he really did have to catch them all. Racism, transphobia, inappropriate comments towards others, and alleged exploitation of fans. With this all in mind, guys, why wasn't he cancelled immediately? Was it because if James Charles came to your house with Ben Shapiro and blackface, the heteros would be more concerned about Ben Shapiro's safety? As hilarious as that thought would be, and I'm not suggesting it's completely out of the question, it's not exactly the case. You see, the devil's in the details. The way we can understand these previous dramas is actually as strong foundations for why people were so ready to turn on James Charles when the time came. So let's look at them, explain why they contributed to the scenario, but why he ultimately got away from them. James Charles is an impulsive person. I don't think that statement is remotely controversial. In many ways, that is what made him so monumentally popular. His speed of conversation and energy during videos really enhances his charisma in many ways. However, equally it means that he does not have a filter. Many like to envision their favorite creators as just only thinking lovely, wholesome thoughts throughout their career, but that's a load of bullshit. The truth is, you can think of anything at any time, the most twisted, broken, and often offensive thoughts that you keep inside your twisted mind to satisfy that craving of darkness that many have. The problem is, most public figures know exactly how many of those thoughts would be received if they decide to say it out loud. James Charles probably has some level of that, but clearly lacks the judgment that other figures in the beauty community have. And that can be found in many tweets and even videos, even ones that aren't inherently offensive, which is why he often says stuff and then deletes it 10 minutes later, because the emotional flashbang that went off in his head telling him publicly airing his dirty laundry was a great idea suddenly didn't seem such a fantastic initiative. However, his greatest weakness is also his greatest defense, because a lot of times he'll retract a comment very quickly and apologize from the bottom of his heart. And a lot of people don't like to go after people who've apologized and pledged to do better, because an apology is meant to be a resolution. The only time we might pursue it further is if we feel the apology isn't genuine, and therefore we think they'll keep up these habits. A lot of people didn't want to be seen as just continuously dragging someone out over stuff that they'd already apologized for. However, it did build a lot of resentment in people who have their suspicions about his intentions, and probably gave people an impetus to really come down on him when these videos inevitably came. So what needed to change about these scandals that would suddenly bring him down? I mean, all the stuff that had happened hadn't slowed his momentum. Another thing was, because the main scandals weren't too frequent, they'd often happen with some time between them. It never really had the capacity to snowball because it kind of happened in brief spurts of interest, rather than one continuous, ongoing scenario. And although there were people with clear vendettas against him, they're not going to be the ones subscribed to him. Now, when various scandals arise, the biggest problem with public response is that it often takes the form of many different narratives. So if we take James Charles's tweets, for example, the one about Ebola, some may say, "This proves James Charles is a racist and should be cancelled." Others might say, "Well, I don't think he's a racist and shouldn't be cancelled, but he should apologise." And because of this dissent within the group of critics, you're going to have trouble outshining James Charles's response, because he'll present one narrative that represents his mindset. It's like party politics, and in a way, it's not an inherently unhealthy thing. But James Charles will present his perspective, and with all that momentum behind him, he's going to get the backing of people who want to believe he's an impulsive lad who just can't think straight sometimes. Essentially, if James Charles was going to actually have a wake-up call, you'd need one person to bring a singular narrative forward. Infiltration had to come from the inside, and that could only come from a creator not just in the beauty community, but one with experience and one with respect. The sort of figure who has the power to giveth and taketh away. Also, given the closure on a lot of these previous incidents, a person who calls them out would also have to be typically calling them out for new drama, or drama that at least James Charles hadn't personally addressed or faced down any consequences for. This is where we introduce Tati Westbrook. Tati Westbrook is one of the most senior creators in the beauty community. She's 37 years of age and owner of the company Halo Beauty, which sells products related to skin, hair and nail treatment primarily. As someone with a few more years on her, she definitely comes across with a bit more dignity than most. She also has an extensive history of working with James Charles and a constant run of promoting his products and supporting him, so it's very likely there is a significant overlap in audiences between the two creators. This is an important point to note. People like I'm Alex and so on can call out James Charles any day of the week. It won't have a huge effect because firstly, as a perceived outsider, these creators carry less credibility in their experience. And secondly, there's just not the same overlap in audience that can cause an exodus from James's channel. All of these factors make Tati an important puzzle piece. But what was the fresh drama? Well, there's this event called Coachella. This is a pretty popular music festival that is attended by many icons. And when James got there, shock horror, he needed security. Who would have thought? But do not fear. A company by the name of Sugar Bear Hair had a contract and would help them out if he could promote their fantastic product. So he did. But Sugar Bear Hair is a primary competitor of Halo Beauty, and Tati felt upset by this, so she posted a story to her Instagram explaining her upset, and although not calling him out, pretty much implying that she was talking about James. James, seeing this after the expiration of his promotion, posted a public response stating that he was sorry to Tati and wasn't thinking about it at the time. Very typical James Charles. So the drama's over. Right? Right? Wrong.
Hey you guys, welcome to today's video. Obviously from the title you know that this is going to be intense, different, and this is absolutely not a video I ever thought in a million years that I would be making.
You see, in many ways, there were many people ready to pounce on a significant anti-James Charles story. There have been people discussing it for ages, but only Tati Westbrook could make it the perfect storm of destruction. Whether that was her intention, I cannot say. I think it would have been hard to foresee such an outcome, but it's what happened, and it was enabled by all the previous factors considered. However, with that said, a good exposed video would still require a careful sensitivity about it. However, using the templates of last year's drama, you could identify what works. Not being over-emotional.
So sorry, you guys. I'm so sorry for disappointing you. It hurts me so bad.
Establishing credibility not just as a person with experience, but also a person with positive intent.
there's something about him that I just adore and love, and he'll grow out of this and he'll mature, and I want to be someone that can give him solid advice, and there's something in my heart that is pulled to him, and I love him, and I am there for this kid through and through. And I really have been, and there's so much that you guys don't know.
And providing a valid set of reasons for why you're doing what you're doing.
And I'm gonna share a lot of it with you because I feel at this point that I have to, because Gabriel Zamora decided to drag me out on the dance floor by calling me out by name in a video that he made about opinions in makeup.
Now, as tonal presentation goes, it's really a masterstroke in every area. Tati seems calm but not disinterested. It's a video that carries a lot of dignity and exactly what Charles's critics would have wanted in harming his reputation. Of course, there was very little actual evidence, but circumstantially to a community, everything added up. When taking someone down, the key is to undermine their redeemability. This is dispatched very early on in the first few minutes by Tati, who presents herself as one of the people who has openly defended James Charles and given him multiple opportunities to redeem himself.
And for someone that I helped when no one would, asking for absolutely nothing in return, never asking for a payback, never asking for a dime, any of the deals that were structured, if anyone ever offered a kickback, we'd say no, put it in James's pocket, help James, help him. You know, anytime I had an opportunity to help him make money, I would. If I could give him advice, I did. If he needed a safe landing, I was here. I have so much empathy for people, and I really want to see people grow and step into themselves, and I'm more the person to ask, like, well, what made you feel that you needed to do XYZ? Like, what happened to you? Or like, why do you feel like you need to do that? I can't be the person to point and write people off very quickly. Like, it takes a lot for me to really want to not be associated with someone. And so I've always had a really forgiving heart because I know to get here, I've required a lot of forgiveness myself.
If we believe someone can get better, then we're more likely to forgive them. However, there's a point of no return where that tolerance is broken. By presenting herself as one of Charles's biggest defenders, she also made her attack all the more damaging. And the way she expresses herself is extremely relatable. I have many people who I know I've taken the sort of wise man figure in, even though I think they've probably done some really stupid shit. Many of us believe in people's capability to get better, especially when it's our friends. And Tati clearly shows herself as a friend who has just lost that tolerance. With the new drama, she had fresh allegations to show that he's been behaving in the same way that he has been. And importantly, she focuses on the responses and therefore underlines the redundancy of them.
Things were said that I cannot unhear. At my dining room table. I cannot unhear it. When I confronted him on it, he cried, he apologized, and you need someone to tell you to stop it. And that's exactly what I did in your kitchen in front of Gabriel Zamora. I had to call every one of them up the next morning and apologize on your behalf because it was so uncomfortable. And I've continued to do that, but it's just all kind of stacking up right now like this.
She essentially makes it so if he apologizes, it no longer carries the effect that previous apologies had because people are skeptical of the genuine sentiments behind it. Because Tati is testifying that he did the same thing to her. It was about image protection rather than actually feeling bad. So with that line of defense, Tati went in with serious allegations.
Oh my God, you tried to trick a straight man into thinking he's gay yet again, and somehow you're the victim. You know, it's really disgusting to manipulate someone's sexuality, especially when they are still, you know, emerging into adulthood and don't quite have everything figured out. You are using your fame, your power, your money to play with people's emotions. You're threatening to ruin them. You're threatening to embarrass them. And you're doing that to have them behave sexually in your favor, even if they're straight. And you know what? That's not okay.
Now, there were a fair few claims, but I thought we'd focus in on one primarily because this has been the source of the most controversy. In a video that was later posted by the waiter in question, he states that he was, quote, bi-curious, but after the engagement felt like he was straight. On one hand, this doesn't completely reflect Westbrook's retelling of the story, but on the other hand, the DMs the waiter showed clearly demonstrated a coercive side of Charles, telling this person he wasn't actually straight, even if it does come across as more desperate than anything. Charles was definitely the assertive one in this scenario, and also the one with significant amount of power, and James's retelling of the event doesn't quite reflect the DMs either.
I was traveling and I met a really, really beautiful boy at a restaurant, and we caught each other's eye, and I didn't think anything of it. The wait staff was like harassing him because they saw that I kept looking at him and stuff. And the next day, he had DM'd me on Instagram, and he was like, "Oh my god, I noticed you last night. Like, I thought you were really beautiful." And I was like, "Oh my god, can I ask, like, are you straight?" And he's like, "No, I'm bi."
Okay.
So he right away told me he was bi.
And I did. We can throw the screenshot up here somewhere. At that time, I was bi-curious.
So he's literally like, "Hey, I just want to let you know, like, I'm really grateful for everything you helped me with. I actually just came up to my mom last night and told her that I was bi, so thank you so much." And so she was super, super supportive. And I told her that I wanted to come visit you, and I've thought about it a lot, and I talked to her, and I actually think that I'm straight, so I'm not gonna come.
I was pretty sure I was straight. So I told him in a long text message that I am straight.
With all this in mind, Tati continues to recall situations in which James behaved improperly, and then recalls the most recent situation over Sugar Bear.
Are you kidding me? A, you say you don't like this brand at all, and that it would be embarrassing. So like stick with that. Like stick to what you speak. Practice what you preach. You say that you're the realist, you can't be bought. Well, you just were. I don't think you were in a dangerous situation. I really, really don't. You know fair well how crowds are, so if you did think there was going to be a dangerous situation, I think you would have brought your own security. You say you don't like the brand. You, I'm sure, hadn't tried the product for more than a week because they offered you that deal on the spot at Coachella, and 9 days later you had the story. So you hadn't even tried it for a full month. James always said that he couldn't promote Halo on his channel and really do, like, you know, heavy endorsement, was because he has a teenage audience and it would just be inappropriate. You sold out me, but you threw away our friendship, but you lied to me, made up a story, you knew this would be embarrassing for me. No, our relationship is not transactional. I have never asked you for anything in return. And you kept it up for 24 hours. Of course I didn't want to call you back. But then you go and post an apology and you can't even mention my brand name. Like, I'm not an idiot. I know what contracts look like. I know what the exclusivities look like. And it just smelled rotten to me. You don't get to the success that James Charles has without knowing how to work someone, and I don't want to be worked. I don't want to be manipulated. And I tried everything that I could. But I don't matter to him right now. I'm only a piece in his game, and everything's a game, and I'm tapping out.
No longer does it look like James Charles impulsively set up a sponsor to sort himself security and then had a case of immediate regret and took it down. It seems like a calculated move dressed up as an impulsive one to try and make Tati and other viewers feel sympathy when he apologizes. It no longer has the same impression on the audience. Tati's video shut James into a corner into which there was nothing he could say unless any of the claims were false, and Tati already made the assertion that she has receipts.
To Tati and James Westbrook, I'm sorry for everything that is going on and everything that I've put you through over the past few weeks.
And well, that's the thing. Tati's video didn't represent a revelation that James Charles messes up or hurts people, because a lot of people already knew that. It represented the idea that James Charles will continue to mess up because the consequences he's received for his previous transgressions were not enough to actually make him feel remorseful, and the Coachella situation is central to that. In fact, Tati is basically implying that he staged a situation, thus throwing into contention his previous apologies. This is serious stuff. But why is it a problem if everything appears so cut and dry? Let's discuss that and why it served as foreshadowing for the revelation that not everything was completely true. James Charles's copious amounts of viewer trust was hanging on the thread of a singular concept: and Tati cut that, and with that came a tidal wave of people just wanting to destroy him. His response video was a mess. He should have never responded in the state that he was in, cementing the phrase "my truth" as my new least favorite combination of words.
I've already told my truth about this twice. And instead of talking about it for a third time and explaining it and going into detail and pulling up receipts,
And as it worsened, more and more people came forward regarding James and his very strange behavior, including setting his gender as female on Tinder to try and get straight guys to get with him. I think he genuinely does have a problem. Many people watched Tati's video and many people sided with her, because even without receipts at the time, a lot of it felt valid, including the notion of mentoring people in that belief that they can grow into mature, important figures in the community because of the talent that they have. And it made sense. You could understand why she wouldn't speak up at first. We want to believe in people's ability to improve. But I think the fact that people were so keen to unequivocally destroy James Charles made people overlook some legitimate criticisms and buy into any single story about him. The one that probably received the worst internet treatment were the accusations that he behaves in a predatory fashion. Now, from what we see about James Charles is that he's a juvenile, entitled child who needs to be pulled down to earth. He has a perpetual victim complex when he doesn't get what he wants, and his obsession with chasing straight people is unhealthy. But so many people took this narrative without evidence, without substantiation, and bought into additional stories that were, and I don't often use this word, slanderous. There was this story that painted James as a sexual assailant. There was another that basically implied he was a pedo, and this person went to lengths of editing and keyframing to falsify the DMs, and they would have spread further if they hadn't been recognized by my fantastically talented colleague John Swan.
Okay, so these screenshots, these are sketch. So these both the screenshots here from the DMs. Nothing seems suspect at first. It all seems pretty normal. These artifacts just look like Twitter artifacts. We can see the resolution here is the same on both the pictures. This is important. Pop this on top of the other layer. We can see, look at this status bar at the top. Why does that move? That should not move. Look. That's moving several pixels. This shouldn't happen. Nothing's been cropped off. It's the same resolution. This isn't a crop, everything's moved. That's not what an iPhone does. Come over here, look at the pictures. Why is one picture bigger than the other picture? This is photoshopped. This is not real. Definitely sketch.
Receipts are particularly important in bringing people to justice. It's hard for many victims to come forward often. However, the problem with the internet is that it provides a veil of anonymity, which enables more power to people because they can evade the repercussions. This person recreated false visual DMs, and after they were called out, they simply deleted their account. It's not hard in the modern era to completely fake claims, and what has subsequently been shown, and although James clearly has a problem with the way he carries himself, as far as we know, he's not a nonce and not someone who has done some of these terrible things. Yet many of those tweets received tens of thousands of likes and retweets, and many people who probably saw it don't know the truth. When attacked, one person tried to use the invalidation of experiences as a defense, which is disgusting given how they're invalidating other experiences and how this person clearly felt comfortable to stoke the narrative that gay men are predators. I mean, there are more than enough claims that he was behaving in a completely unacceptable fashion and misusing his responsibility, but there is just nothing some people won't do in the digital age for a drop of clout. We should always be critical, even to claims against people we don't like. All in all, it was a sad demonstration in mob mentality. But ultimately, unless James actively responds to these claims, I can't really comment, so I guess we'll just leave it here. Tati did release an additional video, but it didn't really add much to discussion other than a suppression of the reaction. But that's just how it goes, I guess. They don't want the drama anymore. We may never know the truth. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed that video. I want to give a big shout out to the What? He's responded? Shit.
Oh, shit!
In the days following Tati's video, there was eventually a swelling among some commentators that she wasn't being honest. I could completely see where they were coming from, and in many ways the lack of evidence was cause for concern. However, a lot of the testimony was allegedly based on private conversation, of which I could understand why both parties might be hesitant to release. And given James's dumpster fire of an initial response, it did seem hard to deny. There was of course other testimonies such as the waiters that did appear to somewhat contradict the stories, but once again he could have been leaving out context. Honestly, anyone could have. Either way, something didn't sit right, and the critics were onto something. And then James clapped back. In James's video titled No More Lies, he reversed the momentum onto Tati and onto Jeffree Star, who had also made some quite inflammatory tweets. Some suggested that he hadn't/wouldn't clap back because the momentum was so unequivocally against him there was no way he could respond that would turn the tide if he was genuinely innocent. However, I didn't believe that was the case. And this is important, but also still kinda surprising. For many people. People believe Tati on face value for a multitude of reasons that I discussed in my previous parts, but I also described her as a highly credible person within the community. Many people from the outside from commentary were very skeptical, and understandably so, but in the beauty community, she's a reputable figure. What does that credibility ensue exactly? Well, when we look at her history, she's a bit more of a senior figure, she's mature, has her own business, doesn't really look like she has much to gain on the surface. As mentioned, the vitamin situation may have well been a motivation, but she's losing a friendship which she clearly valued, right? And Charles allegedly had many connections that she would be ostracized from too. The odds were so stacked against her, it almost seemed absurd that she'd be doing this for personal gain from many people's perspectives. On top of this, many people in the beauty community were well accustomed to Tati's rather uninvolved stance on much of the drama. At that stage, you'd expect people to be above such menial things, surely. And so it must have been really bad that she'd have to intervene. Circumstantially, it made sense, and therefore people just accepted it, and that effect magnified itself. What added credibility was the fact that she said she had receipts. Remember that?
If that's the playing field that we're on and I have to go there, just know my receipts are like stacked thick.
People don't always want to release private receipts. They're normally held as more captive until someone challenges them. Even though we hadn't seen too much, many people saw it as a fairly airtight case. I mean, if she had receipts, what would James Charles do? Show them?
Before posting my stories, I actually did text Tati first out of respect for her, giving her heads up about the sponsorship, but she was immediately upset. I tried my best to kind of explain the entire situation and also give her a direct apology as well, but at this point I had signed the contract and I absolutely had to post it. There was no getting out of it. Several days I made countless attempts to contact both Tati and her husband James on all their different phone numbers. I texted and called Tati's business number, her family number, and also James's personal phone number as well. After a full entire week of trying to reach out and handle things in private with Tati and her husband James and getting no response, I figured at this time it'd be best to just respect their space, give them their privacy, and that whenever Tati was ready, she would reach back out to me to handle things in private and hopefully move on with our friendship.
We said that he couldn't promote Halo on his channel and really do like, you know, heavy endorsement was because he has a teenage audience and it would just be inappropriate.
Now, this time was just confusing to me, mostly because this conversation never actually happened. If you guys know my channel, you would know that I don't really do dedicated product reviews ever, which is what Tati is known for. But even though that is the case, I've still multiple times talked about her products on all my social media networks. I have to word okay, I forgot to say too. Hello. I'm going to a really important event later on tonight. My best friend.
We are going to a very important event.
Yes, this is true. And this is a very important launch to me because it is my best friend Tati. She's launching something new on Halo Beauty. Super proud of her. By the time this video is out, it'll already be up. So go check it out. Promo for Tati. Love you the most.
Who doesn't need a little beauty boost every now and then? Two of the following statements are real claims made by the original Halo Beauty Booster supplement.
Oh!
Which are the real ones?
Can I just say I love you guys for putting a Halo question in there.
I
love you for that.
I just received my package from Halo Beauty. This is Tati's brand new brand. I did not tell Tati that I was buying these, but I did pay for these myself because I just wanted to support her, and I'm so happy. I know she's getting a lot of backlash on this, which is making me so mad because I know she's worked so hard on these for the past several years now. Congratulations, Tati. I love you literally so much, and I'm very, very proud of you and all your hard work. The I'm a celebrity thing is really incredibly frustrating to me because this is an inside joke between my friends and I that Tati has also participated in, and she twisted this to be something far worse than what it is. I'm going to try my best to make a long story very short. The next day, Sam slid into my DMs first and I happened to see it. We started talking back and forth and he mentioned that he was flattered by me flirting with him the night beforehand.
Sorry about last night, you're very attractive. And then I responded with, it's all good, very flattering actually.
A few minutes into the conversation, I asked him about his sexuality and he told me straight up that he was bisexual.
Oh my god, you tried to trick a straight man into thinking he's gay.
There was no straight men being manipulated anywhere in the story like Tati mentioned. Sam texted me saying he was fully gay, but it was a trap to get me on FaceTime so he could illegally record the conversation to include in the video that he was planning later on. Like I said, at the end of the conversation, I asked Sam how he came to this conclusion, and then he told me he was not fully gay, to which I hung up out of frustration. Later on, he texted me saying he was confirmed bi. This is why, in Sam's video, he included a screenshot of me telling him I did not think he was fully straight. This comment had a lot of people really upset and confused as to why I was telling somebody their sexuality, but there's a very simple explanation. Sam and I talked for a very, very long time, and his sexuality, like I said, wavered a lot. Every time that he was a little bit confused, we had open and honest conversations about it, and he always asked me my input, and I gave it to him. I would never out somebody, and I have never, ever tried to manipulate somebody's sexuality, including his, point blank period.
Yeah, I guess he could. There aren't as many layers to this video as Tati's because there doesn't need to be. What you need to do is refute the evidence primarily and go at Tati's credibility, and he did, with nuclear effect. He pretty much mirrored Tati's very calm, composed tone and had evidence to back it up. He went for the core underlying sentiments in the video. He managed to debunk the idea that he wasn't reaching out to her. He didn't waste time on her comments about how much she had helped him. He dealt with the boy in Seattle and showed that boy's perspective as rather false. He also went to the false allegations and showed how mob mentality ran through even the most celebrated popular figures, such as Zara Larsson. He pretty much went for every single system that drove the initial reaction, and that was important. It wasn't just isolated situations, he went at the individual constructs. Why Tati's video existed in the first place. Dispatched. Why people have a problem with his behavior. Dispatched. Why are people reacting in the way that they did. Dispatched. There were always going to be people who were reluctant to hear him out, but that did not matter. At the core of it was an irrefutable statement of defiance to people who had called him out. They had basically nothing other than a few sporadic statements, and as he showed that they had either fabricated or overblown those ones, it allowed him to apologize in places and for people to be okay with it. Because after all, if his accusers are that bad, then surely James deserves another chance, right? However, it was not over, and someone who immediately became the center of attention was Jeffree Star.
A few hours later, while I was getting ready for the Met Gala, I got this text from Jeffree. Concerned but mostly really confused, I reached out to him about meeting together in private in hopes to speak together and figure out the misunderstanding, but he didn't reply. And by the time I was about to hit publish, I received yet another text from Jeffree Star. I've already cleared up Sam and our night together being 100% consensual. He was absolutely not trapped in a hotel room, but Jeffree also brings up Zach. Zach is his boyfriend Nate's brother, and not only did I not pursue Zach, who identifies as mainly straight, but it was actually Jeffree who suggested that I talk to him in the first place.
Hey, Nate's brother is single and mainly straight, right up your alley.
Sounds good.
And he
Sounds great for me.
And he just moved here. Work.
A few days later, on Monday, I woke up again in the middle of the night from a phone call from my little brother Ian, who was very upset. He told me he had tweeted saying, "Why do people act so tough online about somebody from his hometown who was bullying him?" And Jeffree Star, of all people, had quote tweeted Ian's tweet saying, "Why is your brother a predator? Why did you really move back to New York City? Exactly, shut the fuck up." Many people were quick to call out Jeffree for bullying a kid who had nothing to do with the situation literally at all, and he deleted the tweet. After this, I went to check my phone and noticed that Jeffree had texted me a few minutes prior, and I opened my phone to this. I really want to read this text out loud just so you all get to hear exactly what I had to read, but also so I don't miss anything. Grayson is going on camera shortly to finally tell the world how you tried to molest him and touch him in his sleep and made him uncomfortable for months, you sick motherfucker. Next, Zach will be going on camera to tell how twisted and sick you were, trying to get him to like you and then make him feel bad when he didn't want to send you photos back. Then Sam from Seattle will be joining me and Cameron to talk about you trapping him in his hotel room. You need to be locked in prison for a very long time. You need the internet taken away from you. You are a danger to society.
This was something else. Jeffree Star did this. This is disgusting. It is defamatory. It is actually shocking that someone with Jeffree Star's clout and power would ever send something like that without the actual evidence to back it up. He just accused someone of attempting to molest Grayson Dolan. What? This is where I really started to feel for James's case, because this is just too far. Jeffree also sent a message to James's friend too, which is just insane. And on top of this, he seems so nice to his accusers who've peddled this narrative.
First and foremost, I do want to issue a thank you to both Jeffree and Tati for taking some of the responsibility for blowing this whole thing up and for starting everything. I really respect that a lot, and I also appreciate the fact that they are trying to redirect the hate away, because I think we're all aware at this point that it has gotten way too far. If I've known anything about Tati over the past 3 years, it's that she has a huge heart. There's no denying that, and I think that, or I do believe her when she says that she did not want this to get so vile. I don't really think any of us thought it was going to be as big as it really was.
Why would he do this? Well, maybe one more twist was around the corner, as in response to the video, Jeffree put out multiple tweets stating that he had evidence, he had receipts, and Tati implied that James was thoroughly dishonest. I mean, there have been so many twists and turns in this saga, we were ready for more, right? What did we get?
There was a lot happening behind the scenes, and I think today I would like to shed some light on the entire experience, because I think that things are getting crazy, dangerous, and we need to have a conversation.
Hemorrhaging subscribers, and with the anticipation on him to expose James Charles's lies, Jeffree Star released his video, Never Doing This Again. It revealed absolutely nothing, and left me feeling rather irritated. Likewise, it left some people in the community rather satisfied, because as soon as he released it, he began gaining back the respect and subscribers that he had lost.
Now, most of you have seen some brutal tweets that I sent out last week. A lot of you have seen the vicious text messages that I sent, and I want to let you understand something. Because I said those things, that does not equal me hating James Charles. I sat there yesterday and I started to get really angry. I was gonna pull voice memos, I was gonna pull old text messages from other people that don't wanna be involved, and I was just getting into a place where it wasn't healthy, okay? Today, I know what people want. They want me to sit here and degrade James. They want me to open up my phone and expose it all. I'm done doing that. And it may be shocking. Some of you may be like, oh, are you just trying to save your own ass? Are you a liar? Are you this? I'm willing to bite the bullet and let anyone think what they want. But today I will not be posting voice memos. I will not be posting text messages. I will not be exposing anything more. This has to stop. Did I jump the gun on a situation that I didn't fully understand and chime in? Absolutely, and I am living with that every day. There's a lot of questions about my tweets, and I want to say that I regret them. I don't regret much in my life, but I regret hitting the send button, because they were bigger and louder than I ever imagined. And it made things worse when I could have handled things privately. And that is something that I'm working on. I'm embarrassed of myself. I'm embarrassed for my family that they have to see things online, and I'm sad that Nathan and my friends have to go online and deal with this as well because of my actions. I know who I am, and this beauty community right now is suffering, and I'm really sad that everything is going on. And I know that may be hard to believe, because there's so many people that have opinions. They think that I get off on drama. They think that anytime there's a situation, I insert myself. It's been a really quiet year for me, and I didn't want this to happen, and I should have known better.
In the video, he basically stated that although he could release evidence, he won't, because he's so virtuous and doesn't want to stoke the bitter fire of drama that is currently burning, because it could cause so much pain I mean, he has voice memos that could destroy James Charles and all the disgusting things he's done, but he's not going to release them because we all need time to heal, in spite of the fact that he's an alleged danger to society. I hate to get all overly moral about this, but I believed in better from these people. My mistake. Such a huge proportion of the LGBT community have to suffer through sexual assaults, and given how prominent the LGBT community is in the beauty community, you'd think they'd be a bit more sensitive to throwing around allegations like they're paper planes. I'm not in the beauty community, so this video will have very little impact. It's a takeaway for all my viewers who choose to watch it, but I really feel that Jeffree Star overstepped a line here. He not only threatened James Charles with evidence that he refuses to release, the allegations themselves related to sexual assault, personal to me, so take my opinion with a grain of salt. When Tati's video came out, I was open to some of the claims, and until James's response, I defended the possibility of them, because such behaviour is a serious matter. James was fairly quiet for a few days, and I believed in better from a community that seeks to empower people. After Jeffree's video, I was annoyed and expected a more volatile reaction for such a transparent act of manipulation, and instead James accepted them back with open arms. It is unsettling. And let's get this clear. The reason that this was patched up so quickly was because of business. It was more beneficial for them that they resolve their differences right now, and I understand that. But ultimately, that's what confused me about this situation. Tati has been a person with a level of credibility. She's done so well for herself. I gave her the benefit of the doubt for a long time because I could not imagine her lying. I also gave her the benefit of the doubt because James Charles is an icon with a ton of people backing him, and therefore every single claim she'd make would have to be true. It didn't make sense to me that she'd lie, because even if James Charles was an unstable mess, there was no way that the numerous people behind him wouldn't help him form some sort of coherent response. And he did, but it still bemuses me why they released that video in the first place. I guess I was wrong, but it still doesn't add up. Every now and then, I just think it's a ruse for Shane Dawson's documentary or some social experiment on mob mentality, because honestly, that would make more sense. But then I realized that you were dealing with scenarios that heaped huge subscriber damage, and I think it has to be legit, right? No one would conspire to carry such a forced thing out. In one of his texts, Jeffree compares James to Manny. You can't discard James Charles like you would Manny or Laura Lee, because James Charles has an undeniable appeal that transcends scandal, as seen again and again, which is why he was growing at an unassailable rate. Either this is a ruse, or Tati and Jeffree really aren't as smart, or they knew the audience would come back, which it appears they might be, but it's still a bit up in the air. And it also annoys me that they would begin to throw around such allegations as ammunition for petty drama. As mentioned, there are a lot of victims in the community. It seems so insensitive that Jeffree would even consider sending such a threat. But maybe because the community is so inherently dramatic, these things carry less gravity. It's disappointing that such vindictive behavior is validated because the community is already vindictive enough. And even though James Charles may emerge with a few scratches and bruises, whoever's subjected next to the drama may not have the same courtesies, because by then, it'll all be boring to the outside world. The beauty community is a community like no other. Creators have gone out to destroy each other's careers, and yet have had them emboldened. The one really interesting take that I'd like to finish on is that you can have all the circumstantial evidence to corroborate a story. And that was the case for Tati. She had so many boxes ticked, but going to the store isn't the same as getting the receipt. And when it came to the cold, hard evidence, James had it. And yet we were all led on because the explanation appealed to our biases and made sense. But when it came down to the line, we were misled. And although they may have patched it up, a sour taste may linger. For me, it does, at least. So yes, that's the video. Worked hard on this one, been on the grind. Of course, if there are new developments, I might have to make another one, but obviously it's only going to be if it's significant enough to necessarily turn the tide, and I don't really like making multiple videos on one situation, but I guess that does come across in my content a little. I would love to hear your thoughts nonetheless. I would love to give a big shout out to the editors who have once again done a fantastic job. I also need to give a big thanks to my Patreons on screen right now. Thank you for your generosity. And also my $50 Patreon, Some Hullabaloo. Thank you again. And my $100 Patreons, Brandon and Evening Steel. thank you very much. The generosity is really appreciated, especially when times get tricky with YouTube. They're being a bit dicky recently. I don't like them again. I don't really have too much else to say. If you need to hit me up, Twitter at The Right Opinion, Facebook, Discord, I'm in those too. You can get me wherever. That sounded a bit weird, but who cares? But until then, I'm The Right Opinion, and I will see you in the next one.
朝をむさぼり夜を吐き出し悲観とする我がさが湧き立つこの感情